Marjorie Taylor Greene versus FBI director. Nobody expected this. Most people had already decided what kind of hearing this was going to be. The room assignments had been posted. The witness list had been circulated. Senior staff had reviewed the prepared statements the night before, and the general consensus among the people who track these things closely was that this would be a standard oversight session, contentious in places, predictable in structure, forgotten within a week. Nobody had accounted for what Marjorie Taylor Greene was carrying into that room. The FBI director had testified before Congress before. He was measured, experienced in the specific art of answering questions without conceding ground. He had navigated adversarial hearings. He had sat across from senators and representatives who came prepared to challenge him, and he had done so without visible strain. What he had not encountered was someone who had spent 3 weeks preparing a single question. Greene had done the work, not in the way that becomes obvious immediately, not with theatrics or volume or the kind of opening statement designed to generate a clip. She came in, quietly. She took her seat. She waited through the first 40 minutes of the session the way someone waits who already knows what they are going to say. Measured, patient, focused. When her turn came, she didn't start with the question. She started with a number. A specific number. A budget figure drawn from publicly available federal appropriations records relating to a specific program within the Bureau. She stated it plainly. No preamble. No dramatic pause. Just the number, the program, and the fiscal year it corresponded to. The FBI director confirmed the figure. Greene nodded. Then she stated a second number. This one came from a separate document. A document obtained through a formal records request, which reportedly contained internal Bureau reporting on how the funds allocated to that program had been distributed during a specific period. The two numbers differed. The room, which had been operating at its usual low hum of activity, shifted. Not dramatically, not all at once, but the energy changed. The way energy changes in a room when someone presents something specific enough that the people around them have to stop and take notice. Greene placed the document on the table. She looked at the FBI director and asked a straightforward question. She asked him to address the relationship between the two figures, the allocated amount reflected in the public record, and the distributed amount referenced in the internal document. The director paused. It was brief, controlled, the kind of pause an experienced official takes not because he doesn't have a response, but because the question requires careful framing. He said the figures reflected different accounting periods. Greene asked him to clarify which periods. He provided a range. Greene looked down at her document. Then she looked back up. She noted that the range she had cited did not correspond to the dates on the internal report she was referencing. She read the date from the document, month, day, year, and asked whether he was familiar with that specific reporting period. Another pause, longer this time. The senators on either side of Greene had stopped their own note-taking. The staff members positioned along the wall behind the witness table were watching. The court reporter, who had been typing at a steady rhythm throughout the session, was still. The director said he would need to review the specific document to provide a precise response. Greene said she had a copy for him. She slid it across the table. And that was the moment the hearing shifted. Not because of what the document contained, though what it appeared to contain would draw considerable attention in the days that followed, but because of what happened in the seconds after the director received it. He read it. He read it carefully, more carefully than the pace of a hearing typically allows. And while he read, the room held a particular quality of stillness that anyone who has spent time in congressional proceedings will recognize. It is the stillness of a room that has understood, before the official has finished reading, that the question being asked will require a substantive response. Greene waited. She did not fill the silence. She did not reframe the question. She simply waited, hands flat on the table, eyes on the document in front of him, with the patience of someone who had been preparing for this moment for considerably longer than the duration of the hearing. The director looked up. He said the document raised matters that would require a more detailed review than the current setting allowed. Greene asked him when that review could be completed. He said his office would provide a timeline. She asked him to commit to a specific date. He said he was not in a position to do that from the hearing table. What followed was not a dramatic confrontation in the traditional sense. Neither voice was raised. No procedural motions were filed mid-session. The exchange remained, on its surface, entirely within the conventions of congressional oversight. But conventions are about form, and the substance of what had just taken place was visible to everyone in that room. A representative had presented a document that appeared to show a difference between publicly reported budget figures and internal bureau reporting on the same program. The director had received that document, reviewed it at the hearing table, and indicated it required further examination before he could respond in detail. That response, careful, measured, and reserved, was itself notable. In the hours after the hearing, Greene's office released a statement. They confirmed the document had been obtained through a formal records request. They said it had been reviewed by 2 independent financial analysts prior to the hearing. They said the figures it contained had not been publicly reported and had not been raised in any prior oversight session. The FBI's communications office responded by late afternoon. Their statement said the Bureau was committed to full transparency with congressional oversight committees. It said all financial reporting was conducted in accordance with applicable federal standards. It said the director's office would review the document and respond through the appropriate channels. The statement focused on the Bureau's general commitment to transparency, rather than addressing the specific figures Greene had presented. Political and legal observers who reviewed both the exchange and the subsequent statements noted that the hearing had surfaced a specific question about budget reporting that had not previously been part of the public record. 3 days later, the House Oversight Committee formally requested the complete financial reporting records for the program in question, covering a 5-year period. That request is currently being processed. 2 members of the Senate Appropriations Committee separately indicated they would be seeking a briefing on the matter. The document Greene brought to that hearing is now part of the official congressional record. The figures she read aloud, both of them, are in the transcript. The director's response, including what he addressed and what he indicated required further review, is in the transcript. It is all publicly available. And here is what that public record now shows. A budget figure reported publicly, a second figure from internal bureau reporting covering the same program, a question about how those 2 figures related, a question that a sitting FBI director, when presented with the documentation, indicated required further review before he could respond in full. That review is ongoing. The timeline the director's office indicated it would provide remains pending. The oversight request filed 3 days after the hearing is currently being processed. Greene returned to her seat after her time expired. She didn't give a statement on the Capitol steps. She didn't hold a press conference. She had entered that hearing room with a document and a question, and she had placed both of them on the official record. The record is permanent. The question remains open. And the 2 figures that started all of it, the one the FBI director confirmed without hesitation, and the one that prompted a request for further review, are both sitting in the official transcript of that hearing. 2 figures, 1 program, 1 hearing, and a process that is still underway.